Okay.
Okay, so hi guys. If you didn't know by now, I know I look particularly with my Afro puff this week, but I'm Dr. Harris, and I like to have hangouts for my online classes just so we can have a moment to see each other face to face and kind of chat about what's going on and address any questions that you all might have. And I mean, we don't have to stay on too long, maybe 30 minutes. That's good enough for me as long as you feel comfortable and have any questions addressed. And I have a general outline of things that I want to talk about, and of course, whatever you guys concerns you raise. And then if there's anything that needs to be addressed one-on-one, we can obviously schedule a Zoom appointment like this. That's just me and you. So first things first, of course, I want to hear from you guys. How is the course going for you after 1 week? How do you like it? What have you learned? Is it easy? Is it hard?
It's interesting.
Who said RB? And you said it's
Yes,
interesting.
yes, I did.
Okay, that's the word I use when I'm trying to find a nice word.
No, I meant wow.
What does that mean? It's interesting. In
No,
what
it's interesting in the way that it opens your eyes to different aspects of race and how we interact and how we communicate with each other a little differently. It's interesting, and I mean that. I'm not just trying to be nice.
I use that often when it's a placeholder for trying to find a nice word.
No.
So learning a lot. I know last week we went through 4 chapters, kind of setting the foundation, which was pretty intense, those first couple of chapters. Any other thoughts on the course so far? No, none. I mean, if you don't have any thoughts at all, that's fine with me.
I have
I mean, it's the beginning. We getting into it. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say interesting. I don't want to keep saying that word, but it's informative. Let me just say that.
I like that.
Yeah, I've, it's some things that I didn't know that I learned in chapter 2 that, okay, it's like, oh, okay, this is where it started, or,
What did you?
stuff like that.
What was something that stuck out to you from chapter 2?
Like on racism, how it actually started.
Oh,
I didn't know that. Okay, first let me say I respect everyone's view, everyone's color, everyone's race, size, look, everything. Let me start off by saying that.
okay.
I didn't know that the Europeans were looked at as chosen ones. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that's how the world is portraying it now, but I just didn't know that they were actually written in the book as the chosen ones.
Well, they kind of wrote the
I didn't hear your thing.
Oh, I said they kind of like looked at themselves as the chosen one, and that was what became written.
Yeah. Yes.
Came to what we know now. It's kind of like, where did this all come from? Yeah, that definitely going back to like manifest destiny and things of that nature.
Yeah, that was in that chapter also.
Even all the way back to, I think Dion commented about this with the video about the racist history of Caucasian, where we're looking at science, and they're like, even the way we first tried to talk about race came from the perspective of race. And that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily unpack all the time. Like, oh, it's in a textbook, but who wrote the textbook? And the person who wrote the textbook, where did they get their knowledge from? And where did that knowledge come from? And once you start, kind of unraveling that, you're like, oh, it's coming from a certain perspective that privileges a certain group, and it calls everything into question.
Right.
So that's
I totally agree. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to forget this point. And that fact that you just said, I mean, how do we differentiate on what's right and what's wrong? Because in that case, we can go as far as back as saying, is 1 + 1 = 2? Does it really equal 2? You know what I mean?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And this is what drives people to get things like PhDs, right? Because you can literally continue to chip away and chip away and chip away, and then get to the point where you have the credentials and the platform to then create new knowledge, right? So,
Right.
and we'll talk about that this week when you're looking at theory, a critical perspective. That's where I'm from, right? This really being critical of things, saying, okay, you know this is fact, but how do you know that? And really calling into question the foundations and some of the kind of the things that we take for granted about knowledge, some of the things that we just say, oh, we all know that. Well, how do we all know that? And who is we all?
Right.
Where did that come from? So that's exciting to hear you start to have those kind of questions, because that's the foundation for further scholarship, right? For a research paper, a really good research paper. So welcome, Amanda. I have another phone caller starting with 281. Who else recently joined us? We're talking about how the class is going so far. Does anyone else want to chime in?
Hey, can you hear me? This is Jared. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Jared.
Okay. I don't know how to turn my camera around.
I was like, I hear you, but I'm looking at your feet. But that's
okay. Let me see if I can do this. Can you see me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, I can't see y'all because I don't know how to turn the camera around.
Oh.
But it seems like the course has a whole lot going on. It's hard to follow.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
4 chapters. You know, all the research. Through my reading, I see a lot of reference back to, I guess, the authors who did the quotes.
Yeah.
After each, it seemed like it breaks it up for me, and I can't. Once I found I can get back into it again, I can break it up again. I'm like, but I can get some of the points. It's just very challenging.
So to be fair, this is a 5-week class, so it's an accelerated course. So you guys know it's going to be a lot. Now, week 1, when I structured the course, week 1 has those 4 chapters, which I consider to be kind of like foundational reading. Okay. So that's why this week or last week, all you really had to do was the introduce yourself and then that quiz, right? And as you see toward the end of the semester, that's when more assignments come in, but your reading drops off considerably starting this week. So you only have 2 chapters per week for the rest of the semester, right? And you'll be able to unpack that a whole lot more. But like I said in my announcement, even though the readings kind of go off, they also increase in intensity and in kind of like how do you wrap your head around theories and frameworks and, you know, all this other stuff. What your authors are including in those kind of citations and the references at the end of the chapter is scholarship. So they're basically their work cited for each chapter, so that, you know, if you wanted to go look up more, you can go find those exact articles and read them for yourself. You guys don't have to do that. Hopefully, after taking my first quiz, you see, and I have this, so we'll just talk about it. What I'm looking for is for you to understand something really on a conceptual level. What is the key takeaway, right? Can you know, you don't need to know names and dates and all those different kinds of, but the key concepts. One way to know what the key concepts are is to look at the summaries that I wrote for each chapter. I tried to at least put in, you know, drop a clue, something is in bold, or trying to direct your attention so that you know when you're reading, okay, we're looking at racial formation, pay attention to that, right? The concept of manifest destiny, pay attention to that. This week, looking at theories and how they become theories, pay attention to that. Chapter 3, when we're talking about nonverbal codes and speech codes, that is something that's brought out in the subject, so pay attention to that. But you don't need to know every single detail. The additional articles might come in handy when you start working on your research paper, or if there's something that doesn't make sense. Who has a dog?
Yeah.
Who?
I think.
So if you're like working on your final research paper, then you might say, oh, I wish I knew a little bit more about this one theory that they only have a paragraph on. You can go read that whole article and then use it in your paper. Does that make sense, Jared?
It does make sense. I found that when I was taking a quiz, I focused more on the time than I did my work. And it shows it too. You know, the time was bought. I mean, 15 minutes was not enough time for 4 chapters. For me, it wasn't.
Okay.
But I mean, that's okay, because it's not really.
I am going to run an analysis on our quiz. Have completed it. Pastor Dog, I'm sorry.
That's me.
Okay, I'm gonna raise your hand.
I know.
I am going to run an analysis on the quiz to kind of see. And so when I say analysis on the back end as an instructor, it gives me all kinds of data. It tells me how long people spent on the quiz. It tells me which questions were difficult, which were the ones that people got wrong. And so like I said, I have been monitoring it closely, and I did have 3 perfect scores in 15 minutes and 5 A's. So that lets me know some people are getting it, right? If I ever give a quiz and like everyone makes a C or worse, I know that that was something that I did wrong that got lost in translation. But if a good enough amount of people have a higher score and not as many people have a lower score, then that lets me know that maybe the ones who scored lower, we might need to have some conversations about how you're studying or how you're looking at the material or something like that. I do know that timed exams do give people anxiety, and sometimes it's really severe. And if that is something that needs to, that's why I put in that message, go to disability services. I encourage you to do it. They work it out so that they send me notification that you need more time, and I just go ahead and give it to you, no questions asked. But I have to time because people would just look up the answers, and that's just the way that it is. And I'm not going to do the whole lockdown browser and like the creepy thing where the camera comes on and watches you take the test. That's a lot. So I am considering putting more time on the quizzes. I will look at that again. I had to change the format, because in the past when I taught this class, there were considerably more open-ended questions, but with 44 students in 5 weeks, I would never get the quiz graded. So I changed it to more multiple choice, which is why the time went down. So I'm open, I hear you, but I will look at the data first before I just give everybody credit or something.
I want to piggyback. I found the quiz to be quite simple when you have your slideshows on the blackboard.
Don't give it all away. No, I'm just kidding.
What you say? No, the person who was giving it all away. What did you say?
Don't repeat Bernadette. No.
I like your slides, and then I read the book, and then I was doing the slides all at the same time. So I found the quiz to be really nice and smooth for me.
Well, we'll see. I'm going to look at the data. So I hear you and I'm listening. I'm not the kind of person that's like, if you fail, you just fail, and like 50% of you guys fail, and I'm refusing to believe that it has anything to do with what I'm doing, right? I acknowledge that I can absolutely operate up here and everyone else is like, what's going on? So I'm going to look at it for sure. Okay, any other, before we get into talking about some of our future assignments, any other comments just on the class, the way that it's organized? Is everyone finding the folders okay? The announcement?
Simple.
Okay. So I wanted to talk for just a minute about our upcoming assignments. You guys know every week you'll have a discussion forum and a quiz for sure. But starting next week, we have some written assignments coming up. And let's see, 2 short papers. And I literally mean short papers. So don't like stress out about them. The key for me is when you look at the assignment description, do what the assignment description says. Something that will count off is if you just look at the assignment description and do your own interpretation of the assignment, then I will say, you know, I asked you to do A, B, and C, and if C is not on there, it's going to count on your grade because obviously I'm looking for C. So I believe the first short paper is a scholarly article discussion. So basically, Jared, this actually goes back to those references, right? Any of those articles that the authors cite in our textbook, you could go read one of those. And all I want you to do is pretty much read the article, synthesize it, tell me what you thought about it and kind of critique it, and then tie it into anything that you're learning about in the class, right? And so 2 to 3 pages, APA format, and then turn in a copy of your paper and also the article that you selected. So any questions about that? You guys know how to go to the library's website, find a peer-reviewed article.
So we critique the scholarly article based on what we learned from the book then?
Yeah, and it doesn't, if there's nothing to critique, it doesn't have to be a critique either, right? So don't try to like go in reaching to like find something. You could just say like, pull out the highlights, summarize the article, see how it relates to anything that you're seeing in the media or seeing in the real world, or what you're learning about in the textbook. It could be any race-related issue. So I've had students go and find an article on like colorism, which we'll be getting to. I've had a student go in and talk about racism in the classroom. Right? I believe someone asked in the discussion forum today, why is it so important to talk about cultural diversity in a higher education setting, right? So that is something that's related to what we're talking about, but not necessarily in the textbook. So when you're reading that article, you might say, this brings me back to something that we talked about in chapter 2, how higher education institutions help us, develop these perceptions about race and ethnicity or whatever, right? So again, 2 to 3 pages is like 1,500 words. I mean, it should be easy peasy. I'm not asking you to like write a book. Just show me that you found an article, you read it, you understand what it's talking about, and you see how it relates to the larger conversation that we're having. So that's due next week. Then the week after that, we'll be doing the same thing with a media artifact. So a media artifact is any form of media. It could be a viral YouTube video. It could be a newspaper clip. It could be something that was on social media, a meme. Last spring, I had students talk about the clip that went viral when the white girl purchased a brown baby doll at the Walmart or something. Do you guys remember that? And it went viral because the cashier was like, are you sure you want this black baby doll? And like the mother stood up and wrote this long Facebook post about love is love, something like that. I'm totally gassing it up. But so a student wrote about that and looked at that media artifact and critiqued it. What is another example? Gosh, there's so many examples. I mean, anytime you turn on CNN right now, you could talk about, you might see something that relates to race and ethnicity. So pretty much another mini exercise that will be similar to what you'll be doing for your final paper. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
And you'll be doing the same kind of setup, 2 to 3 pages. You'll tell me what media artifact you selected, give me a brief description of it, like some context on how you found it, how you came across, what's in it, and then using what we've learned about, kind of exploring some of the issues that we've learned about in class. Okay, so no questions about the short paper.
Dr. Harris, I do have a question. This is Arbany. Formatting. In the syllabus, it said MLA is okay, but then on the description, it says APA. Are you very particular about that, or?
No, I was supposed to change it all. So I am a former English major, and I like MLA format for regular assignments. But because COMM is trying to really streamline how our majors are writing throughout, right? So for their portfolio, everything was supposed to be switched over to APA, so that might have just been something that I missed. So definitely, I'll make a note to go back and update the syllabus, but go with APA format. And when I say APA format, you guys, you don't have to put an abstract on everything or cover on everything, but just from when you start and onward, the other guidelines.
So basically just for the citation part of it.
Right, and then as far as like if you have any section headers or anything like that, follow those criteria, and then the references part. So that's something that us commies I have to get with. Any other questions about those assignments? No? Okay, so Then our last paper that we'll be doing for the class, this is the big bread and butter for the class, is our theoretical research paper, which will kind of be like a media analysis as well of the film Crash. So how many of you guys have seen that movie?
I have.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Do I have the trailer queued up? Do you guys want to watch it, or do you just want to go find it on your own?
I own it.
You own
We
it.
can find it on our own.
Okay. Crash is one of the, like I said in my announcement, most intense films that I've ever seen. And when I watch it, again, every time I watch it for this class, there's a particular scene in there where I cry, like ugly cry. Every single time I ugly cry. And there, obviously, it's a critically acclaimed film, but as with any form of media, there are a lot of criticisms to the film. It looks at a lot of the things that we'll be looking at in this course, but that doesn't mean that it's exempt from critique, right? And so hopefully you will be able to watch the film this week and have some key takeaways that will give you, something to think about, whether it's one scene or a series of scenes or a particular storyline. And using the example that I provided for you guys on Blackboard, just go in and do your own kind of analysis using the theory of your choice. Chapter 6 explores a lot of theories related to interracial communication in itself. Chapter 8, which we have not gotten to yet, looks at media theory that relate to interracial communication. So you can use either of those, a theory from either one of those chapters. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of theory to just understand our interactions in general, but I'm a media scholar, so I'm typically looking at how race operates in media, which is something that you would do for Crash. But you can also just apply any one of the theories you're learning about this week to a scenario. And hopefully, if you read chapter 6 before you watch the movie or even just thumb through it, you'll be able to say, oh, I see, I see what they're talking about, or I see how this could relate. So any questions about the final paper or the movie?
So am I hearing you right? Chapter 6 and chapter 8 are two chapters that we want to focus on when we're doing the last paper?
Yes, they're going to give you the overviews of tons of theories. So those are the two chapters that really just introduce the theory and gives you what you want to start with. Of course, with your final paper, I want you to move beyond the textbook. So if you choose to use cultural studies or, some kind of framework, I want you to take what they use in the textbook to start with, but then you need to go find some more information about that theory as well, and then apply it to the film.
Okay.
And we'll have a discussion forum about that too, where I'll be in giving you guys feedback, where you're just, giving your first go at it, saying, I think this theory applies. And then I'll give you feedback in that manner. So it's not like you're just jumping into the final paper without thinking about it.
Okay.
Any more questions? So that was my third point, was to talk about quizzes and discussion forums. And we already discussed the quizzes, but what I wanted to say about discussion forums, by now you should have seen your grade for the first one. I have a rubric under course resources. I don't know if you all have been able to find it. I encourage you to look at it. That's the feedback that I gave a lot of you all, was to go look at it. Discussion forums in an online class, they're really, outside of us doing this, what we're doing right now, are only opportunities to interact and learn from one another. So I grade them pretty intensely. They account for 25% of your grade. So I'm always like, students are like, why didn't I get a 25 out of 25? Well, I'm not going to give away 25% of your grade if the most that you do is 10 minutes before the deadline come in and say, oh, I'm writing 3 sentences to directly respond to the prompt. And then you go to your classmates and say, yeah, Elena, that's a great point. I agree. Yeah, Moana, that's a great point. I agree. Arvin, I can totally see how you would feel that way. I felt that way in my life at one time. And then you submit, right? Because that's not worth 25% of your grade. So when I see responses like that, you're going to get a 17 or a 16, right? You're going to get, really low scores for that, because you came in, you logged in, sure, but it's not creating or contributing to the learning opportunity that we need to have in an online class. There has to be some peer-to-peer and peer-to-instructor interaction in order for us to really take away something from this class. So without all of your perspectives, this class is like just me in the textbook talking to you. So I take discussion forums very seriously. So that's why I have a rubric where you can see what I'm looking for. I want you to tie it into the textbook. Tell me about that one time you were at the store and it happened to you, and if you agree or disagree. You know, I don't agree with your perception that this happens. I disagreed with somebody in the first post already. I'm trying to think. Who was it? I challenged them. Was it you, LaShonda?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to remember. Somebody said something.
No, you haven't got me yet.
There was a concept about the people who are the most passionate about race tend to be the racist people.
Yeah.
And I totally understand how someone could feel that way, right? Because maybe you've had a bad interaction with someone who was racist who went off on you. But, you know, my counter to that was also think about the fact that it could just be a person like me who has had serious negative experiences regarding race, right? Race-related experiences that have made me super passionate about talking about race. So, of course, if you ever want to see me get fired up, let's talk about why should we lowercase black or capitalize black in a research article? Or let's talk about why I identify as black versus African American. I'm going to get fired up, right?
Yeah.
Think that I'm racist. According to your textbook, I can't be racist. So, you know, it's just me having a long history of experiences that make me passionate about this topic. So I did come into the comments and kind of challenge someone on that. And I think that's great because it kind of creates a moment for us to have a dialogue about, you know, what does it mean to be passionate about this stuff and if you're perceived as racist. So go and respectfully agree or disagree and keep the conversation going. I encourage you to do that. That makes me really happy. And people who get 25 out of 25s are people who do things like that. Okay, so that was my last little tidbit. We are at 28 minutes. Any final questions or concerns or thoughts for me?
I had a question.
Okay. This is Sam. Hey.
Hi. My video thing cut out when you were talking about the quizzes, I think. I see on the syllabus schedule that each quiz will cover a certain chapter. Is just those certain chapters of this, or is it like cumulative?
Oh, no, it's just those certain chapters.
Okay. And for the papers we're going to be writing, or the research paper, will you be providing any like feedback or like responses like after it's already graded, like on how we did?
If you want, so typically I ask the students, this is what, at the end of the semester when we're busy grading, right? I typically provide a rubric and we talk about things a whole lot leading up to when you turn it in. So typically once I go in and grade, I'm just, did you do it or did you not do it? But if you want like feedback, say if you want to take this paper and turn it into something else or use it in your portfolio or use it for a graduate school application, then just let me know and I'll slow down and take the time to give you thorough feedback, right? But a lot of students oftentimes they just want to know their grade. So it takes a lot to get really thorough feedback. You're talking about maybe half an hour per student. So if that's something that you want, Sam, I'd be happy to do it. Or anyone, just let me know before time so I can schedule it in to make sure that I look at your paper and give you, you know, really thorough feedback. But in general, what I typically do is there's a rubric and we've already talked in depth about what should be in the paper. And I just kind of go in and assign a score.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Harris, I have a very specific question. Okay, so you were just talking, this is Arbany, sorry. So you were just talking about the like the media artifact assignment that we have. So actually you just bringing it up in the textbook about racism and their very specific definition of it being power, societal power and prejudice. So there was recently, like, you know that movie or that show what's the show? I forget the name of it. Oh, Dear White People, the show that was often.
Netflix.
So the cast made that comment that Black people can't be racist or whatever. So can I tie that definition in with the media artifact?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very clear connection. And if anyone wants a good, interesting media piece to look at, watch Dear White People on Netflix. It's very, and then go read the criticisms, right? Like, I love that you have media that comes out and there's some very strong criticisms of that series, and it's also praise for it as well. But yeah, it touches on a lot of key issues in the Black community for sure. And the idea of Black people being racist is something that we always have that conversation, but according to the textbook definition of what racism is, you know, oppressed people can't be racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, great example.
Okay.
Any other questions? Trying to be respectful of your time. Of course, you can always email me, ask me a question anonymously, or we can set up a one-on-one time for us to do this at a time that works better with your schedule, and we can just chit-chat a little bit.
Is this the only time we're going to be doing this, or we're going to schedule another time to do this?
I'm planning on doing one more right before, probably in week 4. So I like to do one in the beginning and toward the end, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Cool, does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all for joining. Great turnout tonight. I look forward to your discussion forums that are due tonight in 30 minutes. So hopefully,
oh Lord,
gentle reminder to log off and go put some thought into it now, according to the rubric, of course. I'm recording this one, and I'll record the one on Wednesday as well. And whichever one I feel like best represents the conversation, I'll post it on Blackboard, so you can definitely, or I might just post both, so you can come back and revisit anything that we talked about tonight. Cool?
Cool.
Got it.
All right. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.